So before I filed the motion, nobody acknowledged any relationship. So I filed the motion on January 8th, and then on Martin Luther King.
Walk us through that. What were the grounds why is it you feel like Fonnie Willis should be disqualified from continuing this prosecution?
Yeah, and so and these are things that I alleged in my initial motion that was filed on January 8th. I outlined this. My client in particular was not part of the special purpose grand jury. They did not recommend him to be indicted. He was not a subject. He wasn't part of that. So he was added on.
That's interesting, because I remember hearing that the special grand jury had recommended prosecuting like 40-something people.
They had.
He was not even in that list of 40?
He was not.
And they didn't take, or they, as in Fonnie Willis, did not take the advice of her own special grand jury as to more than half the people they wanted prosecuted.
Subsequently, there's been a book that was published that called "Find Me the Votes," that authors had exclusive access to her, and so all of her theories in how to indict people and who to indict was explored in that book. So from that, I was able to learn that she cut a lot of people. And I mean, I have.
Was that because they cut deals with them, immunity deals, or
some of them were that. Some of them I just don't think she wanted to bother with.
Then she added to the list, though, people that were not even recommended, or
my
at
client.
least your client.
My client, yes,
Okay.
she added him, so he was one of the ones. So there were some people, and it's publicly available in that book, like Senator Graham, Loeffler, those Perdue, those people.
They recommended prosecuting them?
Right. She had considered prosecuting them and taken them off the list. So there were a lot of people that had been on the consideration and then had been removed. And my client had not been considered, and then he was added. So to me, I was trying to figure out, why would you want to expand it? There's different ways you can go about prosecution.
Did you figure out why they add your client to the list?
No, but my allegation in my motion is that the bigger the case is, the more money that's made, and that that made sense to me. So for me to file the motion to disqualify, obviously, we had to have some type of a basis, besides all of the violations, and so expanding the litigation. Because of how large it is, the judge has said we're probably going to have 3 trials, and each of them is going to take several months. Where if you just follow me down the path, if you only indicted one person and it was narrow, you could try it in a month. If you indict 19 people and, 3 different essentially alleged criminal schemes, like I divided it up earlier, that you now have 3 years of trial. You've now gone from a month of trial to 3 years of trial. That's a lot more money. And so that, to me, was a financial motive, particularly since my client was not recommended by the special purpose grand jury to be indicted.
Okay. And you had the data to show that she was financially benefiting from the continued prosecution?
Yes. And so to answer your question, you were saying walk me through it. So January 8th, I have a deadline to file this. So I'm verifying, and that's what you can see in the text. You can see heavy text with Mr. Bradley right around then to verify everything. I file it, and at that point, the world is shocked. I mean, shocked, because nobody had any idea. This had been hidden. This was even hidden from her father, who she had testified she talks to 10 times a day. So very few people knew about this relationship. And so they very much wanted to know who knew about it. Mr. Bradley, that next weekend, he gets some calls he gets a call, trying to fish to see if he's the leak, is what it was couched as. He gets a call from a gentleman named Gabe Banks, who ultimately represented Chris Campbell he filed a motion to quash against Chris Campbell, who's the law partner.
Gabe Banks' wife works for the DA's office?
Yes, he does. She does.
Works for Fonnie Willis? Yes,
and I have not gotten it. I've not opened records to it, but I have been told that Mr. Banks also has one of these special counsel contracts. Again, I have not opened records to that, not part of my case. But so he calls Mr. Bradley, and Mr. Bradley calls me and another friend of ours. Her name's Cindy Yeager. She's a district attorney in Cobb County. And, he was upset. I talked to him. It was, I believe, a Saturday night, and I could tell he was upset by his text. I left my kids and went and talked to him because I was worried about him. And, he took it as what he described to me as the first shot against the bow, that they were trying to figure out if it was him, and they were trying to silence him.
Trying
Gabe
to silence him?
Mm-hmm. And he said Gabe didn't say anything that threatened him. He just, out of the blue, called him, and he hadn't talked to him in quite some time. So it was out of the norm for him to call. So Mr. Banks called and told him was asking if he was the leak. meaning if he was my source. And Mr. Banks said that it was because he had seen a news article, and Mr. Bradley knew that wasn't the case, so he said, send me the news article. So he sent him some article that did not say he was the leak, and that put an end to it. But then the next day, Mr. Wade called Mr. Bradley's best friend and said to call, he didn't call Mr. Bradley directly, but told his friend to call Mr. Bradley and remind him of his privilege.
It's an attorney-client privilege.
Yes.
Who's the best friend? Can you tell me?
I'm not, he told me his name, and I'm not positive. I think I know who it is, but I'm not positive.